So I did this thing. I went to therapy. Yeah, I did. I went to individual therapy for the first time in my life. Probably about 2-3 weeks ago. I don't know, who's counting? I should probably introduce myself for those of you who don't know. Hey guys, I'm Yes or No. For the rest of you who have been watching my channel for the past year, you guys probably know, if you have eyes, that this 2019 has not been my year. I guess if I had to point to any one thing in particular, it would be not knowing exactly what I want out of life and struggling being in a new city, especially one that doesn't speak my language. So a lot of isolation and uncertainty about what my purpose is. All of those things kind of kept compounding over time to where it felt like I was almost in a rut. I'm being very open, more open than I thought I was gonna be with you guys. And so I finally decided to take it upon myself to schedule a therapy session. Now, this actually took me probably about a year from the point where I had the idea of going to therapy to actually scheduling a therapy session, just because there's still a stigma against it. Right, guys? Is that just me, or is the stigma still real? Also, it costs money. And so I was just like, not really sure about it. And also I was really afraid too. I had this idea that I would get into the office and I'd talk to the therapist and I would just realize the therapist isn't smart, and I'd be like, why did I spend $100 on a person to talk to me about my feelings? But what made it kind of easier is that Zimon and I went to couples therapy first, actually. So it was more like this buddy-buddy team kind of thing. And then once you go to couples therapy, you realize like, wow, like it's not just the other person, like I'm a little screwed up myself, I gotta fix some things. My individual therapist is the same person who we had for couples therapy. And so I already knew I liked her before I scheduled her. It was kind of cool, like when Zimon and I went in there and talked about our problems together, she was very diplomatic and but also very smart. And so I went individually, and 10 out of 10 would go again and 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 again. I mean, you guys, come on. Therapy, what it really is, like minus the stigma, therapy is just getting to talk about you for an hour to somebody who's actually smart enough to help answer your problems. It's actually, I think it's a lot of times what we try to do with friends. You know, you'll tell your friend Tina like, oh Tina, I'm so sad, Jimmy just broke up with me. But Tina is not very skilled, and so Tina will usually say back to you something along the lines of, sounds like what you need are some shots. Super good friend, not super good advice from a therapist. Right? So I don't necessarily think our problems can be solved just by like putting them on the shoulders of our friends. And I kind of get this feeling like everybody in the whole entire world should have a therapist. But no, I actually think it's crazy interesting how this stigma kept Zimon and I from like seeking help for almost a year. And now after we've knocked the barrier down, it's almost like, yeah, duh, like we can schedule another appointment. Like now the only barrier is our pocketbooks. And I think about another thing that did that for me this year, another thing I was like super afraid to try, but I did, which is acting classes. That's right, I started acting classes. Therapy and acting are kind of like two sides of the same coin when you think about it. You know, very therapeutic and help you figure out who you are, but acting requires you to completely forget about your ego and just step out of yourself, whereas therapy requires you to do nothing but talk about yourself. Oh, that was a very insightful thing I just said. All right, I am gonna leave you on that to chew it over. A little bit of food for thought. And oh, in the meantime, you should know that the reason I wasn't here was because I was in Greece for the last week. So if you want to see my trips and travels and whatnot, head over to my Instagram at yesorno, and, or you know, whatever, do it. You don't have to, but you can if you want to. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. Not your mother or your therapist. All right, I should go before I make any more cheesy jokes. I just shared a lot of stuff with you guys. I hope you appreciated it. Okay, goodbye.
Hey.